I'm Kira Shanae. Thanks for coming back and seeing me for another video. On a dark, stormy night, as most of these stories often start, a man was driving down what is known as Wopsy Mountain. The man had traveled down this mountain many times before, but on this particular night, he felt a terrible discomfort. Because as the storms raged and the lightning struck, he recalled the 2 previous times he had found himself alone on the mountain. You see, Wopsononic Mountain, or Wopsy Mountain, as it's known to Altoona, Pennsylvania natives, is a very long stretch of highway that runs down a very meandering, twisting, turning mountain. And the last time that he had been there, he had seen not once, but twice, what appeared to be a woman standing on the side of the mountain dressed in what looked like a wedding gown. In the thick fog that tends to encapsulate Wopsy Mountain, it was difficult for the man to tell if the woman was really there or if it was an apparition playing tricks on his mind. And yet during both previous occurrences, he slowed his vehicle as he came into her breath and tried to stop to assist the woman, who he was very concerned about because she had been wearing a wedding dress. Terrifyingly enough, just as he came into the woman's vicinity, she vanished out of nowhere. Now, on this night, unlike the others, he decided that if he did see the woman in white standing on the side of the road, he would not stop for her under any circumstance. He would allow her to stand on the side of the cliff, cold and wet and rainy, and would continue traveling on his merry little way down the mountain with not a care in the world, because he was not going to put himself in any kind of danger this time around. So the man continued moving slowly and steadily down Wopsy Mountain, rounding all of the various turns and curves that make it such a treacherous road to drive, especially in the rain and the thunder and the storms, with all of the fog that just obstructs your view at every turn, until she was there, standing right on the side of the road, next to the cliff and the guard railing, the woman in white, in her wedding dress, waiting for someone to pick her up and take her down the mountain. Upon seeing her, the man absolutely panicked. His heart started thumping out of control. His foot pressed down upon the gas pedal, urging him forward faster and faster, except that the road was super slick and he veered toward the woman and the guardrail that was keeping him between life and inevitable doom. The car sped forward completely out of control, and the man looked into the woman in white's eyes as the car sped toward her viciously. Try as he might, there was nothing that the man could do to stop his car from colliding with the guardrail. There was an ear-shattering, loud crunch, and the next thing that the man knew, his car was toppling off the side of the cliff and into the ravine below. When medics found the man several hours later, just clinging to life in his vehicle, all he could talk about was the white woman who had made herself a passenger in his car as he fell off of the side of the cliff and landed into the ravine. Now, this is just one of the stories of the White Lady of Wopsy that locals in Altoona, Pennsylvania tell each other. In some versions, the White Lady is a jilted lover. In some versions, she was left at the altar, and after that, she killed herself. She was so hurt by her soon-to-be husband. In other versions, she miscarried a child, and in other versions still, she had a child, but it died soon after childbirth. In just about every version, she shows up on the side of the road looking for somebody who's willing to give her a ride down the mountain so that she can get to whatever it is that she's searching for. So Altoona's White Lady story is a little bit mysterious. The legend goes that if you drive up Wopsy Mountain and it's raining, it's foggy, and you see the White Lady and you pull over to help her, she's going to just vanish. However, if you see her 3 times, on the 3rd time that you see her, if you pull over to help her, she'll take you. That being said, White Lady stories aren't exactly unique to Altoona. Even the show Supernatural did one, and that was actually their very first episode, except they called theirs The Woman in White. Most of it kind of seems like a cautionary tale for teenagers because Wopsy is a pretty dangerous place to be, especially at night, during storms, or just in general. The road is super treacherous. It is most definitely built right on the side of a mountain. So one side is exactly a cliff that you could drive over and boom, you're dead. And if not dead, you are some other state of being that you don't want to be. And regardless of what time of year it is, driving conditions are just generally unpleasant because it is so high in the air. It is a mountain, so it is just rampant with thick, nasty fog, and you can't see for shit. So the winding twists and turns, constant corners, makes it impossible to navigate if you don't know the road very well. Which begs the question, are we really concerned about ghosts who are going to kill you while they wait on the side of the road to get to their sacred spot? Or are we talking about drunk teenagers driving down the road, not paying attention to what they're doing and careening to their death? I think the long and the short of it is that we have to ask ourselves the big question, which is, did any of this have any basis in reality? Is there anything that we can track back in history that might link to the White Lady of Wopsy? And it turns out there is one story that took place in 1926 that could very well be the basis for the story of the White Lady of Wopsy. The year was 1926, and as you may or may not know, that was during Prohibition. Now, of course, during Prohibition, it was totally illegal to make or move alcohol, but it wasn't technically illegal to have alcohol. So people were still drinking. It was just really difficult to get your hands on some booze. Now, none of this was good news for the people who occupy Altoona, especially during that time, because Altoona is majorly a blue-collar city, and a lot of the fine folks that work there happen to work for the railroad. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everybody who works a blue-collar job or works for the railroad or whatever is like a big giant lush. What I am saying is that if you just got done working a 12 or a 14-hour shift and you hear the whistle blow, you might want to pop back a cold beer or two. Now, at the time, when all these blue-collar workers and other fine folk around town were just wanting to get back to their normal lives, instead of having been impeded upon by the Volstead Act, there were preachers all over town complaining about booze-swilling, unmoral folk who were in the throes of sin by wanting to drink and swill liquor and just be generally immoral. So the presence of people like rum runners, or those who would transport booze from one place to another secretly, wasn't really all that surprising in a place like Altoona. Cue Margaret Gray and Chester Troutman. As far as anybody knew, Chester Troutman was a relatively quiet guy. He had served in World War I, and Margaret Gray was the same. She was married, lived a pretty quiet life. I've got the fallout. Gonna have to wipe that off. Ooh, it's smearing. It's smearing. Get off. We'll take care of that later. What people didn't know about Margaret and Chester was that they were rum running. Rum running? Rum running. They were rum running. Now, on October 11th, 1926, it was a relatively normal day as far as most people were concerned, until late that night when the fire department got a call about a car skidding off the road and tumbling down Wopsy Mountain. The passengers of the car in question, you guessed it, were Margaret Gray and Chester Troutman. At the time, both of them were still alive. Margaret's husband told authorities that he thought that she had been visiting family in Gallitzin, which is a small town about 20 to 30 minutes away from Wopsy Mountain. Holy shit, I look like a smurf. But the truth was that she was rum running with Chester. Let that be a lesson to you, ladies. Don't lie about your whereabouts, because then people won't be able to find your ass. Now, this is kind of when things start to get a little bit shady, because when the police questioned Chester the next day, he started to kind of fumble over his story. Unfortunately, by 11:01 the next morning, on October 12th, Margaret had died from her injuries sustained from toppling over the side of Wopsy Mountain in the vehicle. And nobody's really 100% sure who was driving, Chester or Margaret, because Chester's story keeps changing. See, initially, Troutman says that he was driving, but as the heat kind of starts pouring on, he explains that they stopped multiple times on the way down Wopsononic Mountain so that they could switch who was driving, which just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because again, and I can't stress this enough, if you do any kind of research at all about Wopsononic Mountain, you'll see that it is just a conglomerate of twists and turns and mess, and there's just no good way, especially at night, to pull over and switch drivers, especially multiple times. So in the end, Chester's story just seems remarkably questionable, to say the least. And Chester, the lucky scamp that he is, goes on to live a long, happy life, getting married, being part of public organizations, all of that good stuff, while poor Margaret met an untimely end, her husband left to mourn her for the rest of his life. Thus, the possible, nay, probable story of the White Lady of Wopsy, one of Altoona's most notorious ghost stories. Anyhow, guys, let me grab some eyelashes and I'll be right back with your final look. All right, guys, this is it. This is our finished product. Do you like it? I'm loving it. Anyway, you guys, until next time, remember to always love yourselves, always be a unicorn. Bye!